Is being opinionated bad? And if yes, what can I do about it? That's the question. Is being opinionated bad? And if yes, what can I do about it? Now, I teach Hasidus, which is connected to Toyres Hashem, right? How much of this question is a psychological question and how much of this question is a religious question? You see, when a person says opinionated, they don't mean opinionated. They mean opinionated in the social use of the word rather than in the precise use of the word. Because there's two different things. A, there's having opinions, and B, there's shoving your opinions on other people's throats or offering your opinions. Is it bad to be opinionated? No, I think a person is supposed to have deis. A person is supposed to have opinions. The sign of a mature, wise, thoughtful, deep, responsible, dedicated adult is that he forms opinions. There's right and wrong in this world. I know we live in the age of equivocation and no judgment and everybody is right, but that's cowardice. That's not grown up, and it's certainly not Yiddishkeit. The person is absolutely supposed to have opinions about everything. Now, most people are incapable of having opinions about everything because they're not smart enough, they're not knowledgeable enough, and they don't have enough time. But in areas that are relevant to our practical lives, directly, certainly, and even indirectly, it's very important for people to form opinions. It's very important to, for lack of words, to achieve a certain degree of certainty. I'm sure about this. There's a couple of rules about being opinionated. The first rule of being opinionated is that you have to really listen. You have to collect information. You have to listen. You have to think. In other words, if people are very quick to form opinions, those opinions are very immature. Those opinions are very emotional. Those opinions are very ad hoc. A mature person who forms an opinion forms them slowly and deliberately. I've heard about the Rebbe, and you'll be hard-pressed to find another human being who was as opinionated as the Rebbe. The Rebbe had very clear opinions about everything, and when asked, he offered his opinion. When not asked, you would have thought he knew nothing because he was so quiet, so reticent prior to his becoming a Rebbe. But the Rebbe had very clear opinions about things. I've read articles about the Rebbe in France, where people met him and they engaged him in conversation and they couldn't believe how clear his deis were, his opinions were on so many things. But I've heard that the Rebbetzin said about the Rebbe that when he forms an opinion about something, when he makes a decision, he's incredibly interested in other people's thoughts. He wants to collect as much data as possible. He's open to anybody's attitudes and tendencies and opinions and disagreements. But once he makes a decision, it's like a rock. Once he decides on a path, this is immovable. So I think when it comes to forming opinions, I think people are supposed to form. The difference between a mature person and an immature person is the ability to form opinions. Now, it's okay to say, I don't have opinions about this, like politics or some other issues. But when it comes to areas of practical life, people must form opinions. Opinions about how they're going to treat their spouse, opinions about how they're going to treat their children, opinions about how they're going to deal with the challenges that are going to come up in their relationship with their spouse and with their children and in their community. People must have what's called deis. Deis means philosophical ideas about truth, about correct and incorrect, practical and impractical. But like I said before, number one, I think it's very, very important for people to spend the time forming their opinion and to really be interested in what other people have to say and to appreciate what's called nuance. In Hasidus, there's a discussion about the difference between Tohu and Tikkun. And one of the differences which is drawn between the world of Tohu and Tikkun is the word Klolos and Peratos. Elam Tohu approaches everything in a general way. And Elam Tikkun approaches things in a much more precise and a much more exact way. Practically, what that means is Elam Tohu forms opinions about things that are very powerful, very emotional, but they're not nuanced. Elam Tikkun doesn't form such powerful emotions, but they're much more nuanced. And it says in Chassidus that Eilam HaTayus Klolus is called Katnus, and Eilam HaTikkun's Pratus is called Gadlus. The sign of a mature person is the ability to appreciate nuance. Not every situation is the same. Every rule has exceptions. And even the rule itself, how firm is it? How important is it? It needs to be flexibility and plasticity in the opinion itself. And a mature person who forms opinions wants to hear what other people have to say. An immature person who has opinions doesn't want to be disagreed with, gets very upset when someone doesn't hold like he does, and he's very incapable of having conversations without it becoming personal and combative and argumentative and emotional. That's not good. But having opinions, I think, is necessary in life. The sign of a grown-up person is having opinions, clear opinions, definitive opinions, at least about the things that are important in his or her life. And like I said, it's important to form those opinions over time and to always be open to what other people have to say. But when you form an opinion based on what you've studied and based on what you've heard and based on what you've been taught, you don't allow your opinion to be changed because the wind is blowing in the other direction. Now, as far as the second issue, which is offering your opinion, and which is probably what this person meant, if being opinionated is bad, is being opinionated bad, and if it is, what can I do about it? Now, offering opinions is a whole other story. There's an old Yiddish rule that says, never offer an unsolicited opinion, certainly about a practical thing, and even about hypothetical things. You know, people talk, people socialize, and socializing is very important. Even though, you know, from a strictly halachic perspective, for the holiest of us, socialization may be viewed as bittul Torah, it may be used as dvarim betelim, it may be border on avak lashon hara and heilech rochel. But people socialize. Socialization with people is very important because socializing forms bonds. It creates connections between people, and people were designed by the Creator to be precocious. We need each other. Nobody wants to come into a room and feel lonely. Nobody wants to live in a community and be unidentified. You want to have friends. You want to have a social circle. You want to have a place within it. You want to be recognized and acknowledged. And that's why people talk. And of course, as we've discussed many times, people talk about all kinds of things. One of the wisest things I've ever heard is intelligent people discuss ideas, average people discuss things, and lowly people discuss people. Those are facts. It's such a simple, commonsensical law. People talk. In conversation, you can say what you think, but you don't necessarily have to argue it out. You don't necessarily have to be right all the time. It's okay to listen to what other people have to say, or as the expression is, agree to disagree. So I think there's two different issues. Number one, should people have opinions? Absolutely. I think the sign that you're a mensch is that you're certain about certain things. Now, as Jewish people, a lot of that certainty has to do with Torah and Halacha. And as Hasidim, a lot of that certainty has to do with the wisdom of the Rebbe. But this itself requires a lot of study. Torah is also not chatuchin. It's equivocal. It can be understood this way and this way. And the Rebbe's teachings are very, very complex. But you want to study what Torah says. You want to study what the Rebbe says and form a clear opinion. This is what the Rebbe holds. And be crystal clear on this issue. Again, I think it's important to form those opinions slowly, deliberately, and listen to what other people have to say. But having opinions is important. As far as offering opinions to others, it's not a good idea to offer an opinion unless you're asked, especially if it's the kind of thing which is going to create negative emotion, create pushback. So I answered the question and didn't answer the question, because the question that I was really asked was, if being opinionated is a bad thing, how can I stop myself from being opinionated? Well, that's the only part of the question which I didn't answer. But this question is going on too long, so maybe I'll leave it for next week. Good night.